Hello everyone, this is Eflex and welcome back to another Producer's Approach video. In this video, we're going to be looking at SirensCeol song Endlessly featuring Aloma Steele. So if you guys haven't watched my videos in the past, I basically break down these videos into three separate sections. I have an intro backstory section, breakdown analysis section, and then lastly an outro section. So this song Endlessly by SirensCeol I think is part of the Endlessly EP or album. I can't remember. I do remember when this EP or album was released, but it's been a while since I've listened to the whole album or EP. I normally just listen to Endlessly. And it took me a little while to remember this song because I used to listen to it a lot in the past, but I kind of forgot the name of the song for a while. So I couldn't remember what to look up. But when I did rediscover the song, I was like, yes, this is the song I was looking for. I don't know if you guys have that same issue. I kind of have that issue with some of these songs over the past, 5-6 years. You listen to a song, you don't listen to it for a while, and all of a sudden you're like, what is the name of that song again? And then all of a sudden it just kind of comes to you and you're like, oh shoot, I found it. So really cool. SirensCeol, definitely an artist I've been listening to for quite a while. Was introduced to SirensCeol by my friend Earth Fox, so thank you, Earth Fox. Prior to that, I had not heard of SirensCeol, but until I was glad I found out about him before he released on Monstercat, because that was really nice, whether it be a remix or his actual collabs. I was glad I found about him before, by my friend Earth Fox. So it wasn't too much of a shocker and surprise. When I saw him on Monstercat, I wouldn't be like, oh, who's that? I would have been like, oh, wow, he made it. So it's really cool to see that. And this song is a more traditional progressive house song, but it does hit the right notes and it does have a little bit of complextro mixed into the song. So very interesting take on progressive house, but this is kind of the more traditional nostalgic style of progressive house that I personally like. So anyways, I hope you guys like this video, and this is SirensCeol song Endlessly featuring Aloma Steele's vocals. Let's get started. Okay, so just to start off, it's a more traditional kick kind of clapper snare build up with some hi-hats. But what's interesting is it has a pluck playing on the 2 and 4, so the offbeats. Sounds like a silent pluck, because around this time they were using the silent plugin a lot more than maybe today. They use the instrument Sarah more, but this time silent was still kind of a big instrument to use. I like how it's playing on the offbeat and it's kind of playing a progression. But what I like even more is at the end of each kind of measure and phrase, there's kind of a complextro feel with a random either sample or note played in there. So a really nice contrast with the complextro vibes, just starting off. And I like how the song slowly builds more low end. Like you heard after 15 seconds, you heard like a little bit more low end being added, like a different synth, or the same synth is opened up, the pluck synth opened up with more low end, or a different synth that had more low end was added to that same synth playing. So it's pretty interesting. I like that intro section just with the complextro kind of style. So anyways, let's continue. Okay, so much like Solaro's song Aura, there is a lot going on within this section. So you hear a lot more of the low end come in. You almost hear like a low growling bass line, which does wub at the end of phrases, with other various different samples, whether it be notes or just audio samples at the end of phrases. But it's pretty nice because it gives this more aggressive tone to this intro section. So it gives that kind of more electronic kind of aggression, not aggression, but like more of a aggressive feel, more of a deeper tone in terms of kind of the build up, and just kind of, it's not like a really light and dreamy song. There's like kind of like a nice little aggressive tone of a bass line just playing and wubbing on the bottom, which is really nice. Reminds me a lot of Complextro. And what I do like is the reverse kind of vocal sample for the vocal of Aloma Steele kind of transitioning within the section. And you do hear the synths open up quite a bit. It might even be like a saw wave added in there, or some type of pad with some type of saw wave just added in there to give way more filling space and like more high end as well. So overall, really great intro section, really interesting, and a lot of variation of sound. So let's continue. Okay, so what I wanted to point out was within this section, you hear the kind of vocal starting with and then you hear the vocal playing, and then you hear the pluckish sound, like the lead in the background, which I actually like quite a bit. It's like a pluckish sound, but you hear on the left and right of your headphones, but it sounds really big. That's a really nice sound to pair with the vocals, because there's not really a bass progression or a chord progression playing along with the vocal from what I can hear. Like the main focus is the vocal playing kind of along with the chord progression, kind of determining that, and then you hear that pluck sound also going along with the vocal. And then you do hear a sound later on, which is more like a pad and chord progression playing, but it's not, it sounds like it's playing on the off beats, but I could be incorrect there. But that's really nice as well, how that's introduced pretty slowly. And then after that, you do hear that kind of reverse kind of vocal chop of a syllable, like a reverse reverbed vocal chop. So really nice effect there, and something SirensCeol is really good at. So anyways, let's continue. Okay, so big snare build up, traditional to house music, but I like how the synth sound that's playing kind of almost detunes. I'm not even sure, or just changes a little bit. Like I don't know if it like detunes or goes higher up in the chord progression, but it does change a little bit. And then there is another sound that goes kind of like a building, either synth or VFX or something. But then there's like a white noise sweep, and then it cuts out to the little phrase. It's not really a breath of air, but it's like a little phrase goes dun 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 dun, and then it kind of drops, which I think is a really nice effect there. It's not so much of an effect, but it does break a little bit of the tension before like the chorus hits. So it's not really a breath of air, but it kind of is. It's kind of like a lead in into like the chorus section. So nice touch there. Let's keep going. Okay, so I'll stop it here. I want to talk about that first part, the more complextro drop. I really like that part quite a bit. There's a lot of call and response going on there, but a lot of different kind of sound effects. But you do hear the kind of main kind of lead melody chord progression type thing playing along, as well as the different kind of samples and synths, answering whatever that chord progression or lead is playing. So there's a lot of variation within that section, and there's a lot of different vocal, which has vocoders. So you hear the vocal like, "Can you keep your mind in motion?" Little different vocal chops there that are vocoded, which I like quite a bit. It adds a lot more variation because a lot of times you hear vocal chops, they're either like detuned or they have a lot of reverb and delay and they're not really vocoded. So this is probably the first time I really heard vocal chops vocoded to the extent of how it was in this song. And then I like how that transitions into the kind of more angelic Aloma Steele vocals within this second section of the chorus, which I like quite a bit. And then the kind of chord progression lead synth sound plays along with the vocal, but the vocal kind of takes over as the lead melody. So that kind of drives it, and that other synth sounds kind of the chord progression. And there is still some movement on the bottom with some wubs at the ends of phrases and stuff like that, but it's more of the melodic section than the first part is the complextro drop, which for a progressive house song was a little more unique because a lot of progressive house at the time either had kind of a complextro drop or was just straight melodic with a lead and a chord progression, and no wubs. So very interesting, and I like the variation within this song so far. So let's keep going. Okay, so this section is really nice. The vocal really does shine within this section. So you hear the vocal kind of in the middle. And when I say the middle, like if you're wearing headphones, you hear it like on both sides. And then you do hear the vocal a lot more on the right side of your headphone at one point, where you hear the vocal a little, it's like a little louder, but then you hear the effects of it more on like the right side, at least from what I could hear on my headphones. And that's a nice effect because it really showcases the vocal and it doesn't just leave in one place. So it gives some variation. So you can focus on the vocal a little bit more than if it was just kind of panned in a certain direction, which I think is rather interesting, and I think a really good method to keep the listener intrigued and interested in your song. Plus, I like the introduction of the synths again, kind of the more kind of robotic sounding lower wub synth and the plucks towards the end of this chorus and drop. And I like how it fades kind of like aura smoothly. It's not like an abrupt like kind of switch or an abrupt kind of fade out. It's really smooth. It takes its time fading out, and then you hear the vocal say, "Can you hear my heartbeat?" beat, and then kind of like has a delay that could be like a manual delay of SirensCeol, just taking the heartbeat and then repeating the word beat, and then having that manually kind of placed a little bit after the vocal to make a kind of echoing delay effect. But anyways, really good so far, and let's keep going.
In the city, we're beautiful. I count the ways they shine in the black sky. Endlessly, we move the ground.
Okay, that section right there just sounds so good. So good. The plucks. I love silent plucks. I love sections like this where they just it's the pluck and the vocal and just the pluck sounds so good. They're so kind of full and rich with sound. It pairs really well with the vocal. I like that water drop sound, and I just like the evolution of the section because it's just focusing on that pluck sound and the vocal, and with those two sounds by itself, they just kind of build up. And then there is some VFX, but those two sounds are the core sounds. And I don't know, it's just that section's just too good. It's just too good. I love sections like that where they have the vocal and then they have like a silent pluck like that, which is really full and just kind of takes the whole space. Um, I wish more songs now would do that, but if I were to make progressive house, I would definitely try and strive to do it that way, and try and have a section where the pluck is full like that and just paired either with the vocal or like a lead melody. It just sounds so good. It's just really kind of dreamy and just really good. So, anyways, let's continue. Okay, so this is the build up section. It's interesting because you do hear the kind of chord progression play without the vocal chops or anything right before the build up of the snare, which is pretty similar to the previous build up before the first chorus and drop. But that one section is pretty interesting because he just plays the chord progression for a little bit and you hear it kind of in its own state of without the vocals and such like that, which I think is pretty nice because you really do kind of hear what the song would be like for a little bit without vocal chops and vocals. So kind of gives the instrumental a chance to shine for a short time. So anyways, here's one of my favorite sections of the song, where the lead section not the lead section, but the lead synth comes in. And it's just really reminiscent of what progressive house was back in like 2013 and 14. Like it pretty much progressive house, I would think, probably hit its prime and peak kind of in this time period. So let's keep going. All right, so that was the second chorus. It's very much structured like a progressive house structure or a house song. No real wubs at the end of phrases, not like the previous first drop where it was more like an electro complexo type drop mixed in with like kind of house vibes. You don't hear the vocal at all within the section, but you just hear the chord progression and the lead playing. And what's interesting is this percussion is very much structured like a house song where you have the kick just playing, maybe kick and clap playing within the first part, and then the second part of the chorus, then you have the hi-hats come in, which I figured was really interesting, that it kind of reverted back to a more progressive house style in terms of structure for the section, but I do think it works really well. I wish the section was a little bit longer because that lead is super catchy. The lead synth itself reminds me of a sound that you hear in the song Tonight by Two Thirds on Monster Cat. The lead synth sounds very similar to that song. So that might be why I like it because I really do like Two Thirds song Tonight as well. So um overall, really good section. There's the chord progression, the lead playing. The chord progression does sound like it's not playing on like the root, like on the very start of the first beat. It sounds like it's almost delayed a little bit, or like there's like the attack is like lower, or there's a lot of decay sustain on it. It just sounds like it's like playing a little bit after when like the lead is playing on the like on one or something on the main start of the measure. So it's pretty interesting there. And this is the outro section. So we'll go through the outro and then talk about the song a little bit more and we'll wrap it up. Okay, so that was Siren Soul's song Endlessly featuring Aloma Steele. And the outro section is interesting. It's pretty similar to the intro, but what I do like listening to is all the different sound effects he used. They're not the traditional sounds you use in a song. Like some of them made sense within the song, but some of them were just like a little bit kind of I won't call it bad sounds, but I'll call them a little kooky. Like they don't really seem like they'd be a sound you'd hear in an EDM song, but because they're pitched and they fit in well, that it works within the song. By themselves, like the sounds, they would sound kind of weird, but that's kind of the beauty of, I feel like, complextro and electronic music sometimes, because you can throw in like the weirdest sound, and if you could pitch it and make it work, it actually works really well within your song. It could be like the randomest thing, like I don't know, like you clapping your hands or you dropping something, and you could twist that and bend the audio and make that into something usable in a song and sounding good. So pretty interesting, just the different sound effects used like in the outro section. That's kind of what interests me when I listen to the outro kind of section of the song, even though it's structured pretty similarly to most electro, complextro, house, progressive house songs with that kind of 30 seconds a minute intro and outro. But overall, the song's really good. Siren Soul, definitely a really good artist. I think now he goes by Siren or Sirens. Aloma Steele's vocals in the song are really angelic. I would say that middle section was the best representation of just the pairing of the instrumental with Aloma Steele's vocals. I really showcased her vocals within that section. And the second chorus, I like how melodic it was. The lead sound always is stuck in my head every time I listen to it. But that first drop is something you don't hear in progressive house, a more complextro drop. Like most of the time, you'd mark this song as electro, but at this time period, this could have been considered like progressive house or house. So, I mean, I'm cool with that. Either way, you know, if there's a complexo drop, I'm all for it. And then if there's a melodic drop, I'm all for it too. So, in terms of structure, the song had everything going for it that I like personally. So, anyways, if you guys haven't listened to Siren Soul's music or now Sirens, definitely check it out. He makes different music now. I don't think it's in this style of progressive house anymore. So overall, hope you guys like the breakdown video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next A Producers Approach video. All right, have a good one, everyone. Peace.